Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming to workshop number 2. So happy to see a lot of you come back from last week. And don't worry if you miss anything or if you want to rewatch any of the portions of this, everything will be posted on YouTube later this week, and I will get the link out to everybody. I'll also be sending out the presentation, so don't worry about taking notes. You'll have access to all of this afterwards. Also, we have a presenter this week, so I have chat enabled. If you have any questions for the presenter, or even as I'm going through the presentation, just go ahead and type it in the chat box, and I will keep an eye on that and make sure that we get to all the questions. If for any reason you don't want to use that, just email me after if you have any questions, and we'll get you a response to that too. All right, everybody, we will go ahead and get started. All right, so real quick agenda of what we're going to do this hour. I'm going to give a really fast recap of workshop number 1 that took place last week, or if you watched it on video. And then we're going to have Jared Combs from CDE. He's going to give us a presentation, and then we'll jump into waste. And finally, we will discuss a little more homework for this week. Quick recap, last week, or on workshop number 1, if you watched on video, we went over how to become certified and gave a background of the green certification program. Again, if you had any questions, just reach out to me. Hopefully everyone now has received the level worksheet and had a chance to look through that. If you have any questions on level worksheet or how any of the certification works, let me know. Then we moved into community challenges. So we talked about air quality and water quality, recycling, waste, basically the things that are impacting our community, but also to think about how those community challenges also relate to your organization. And then finally, we talked about your environmental policy statement, which really is your green mission statement for your organization. So we talked about how to create that, and thank you to everyone that's already sent it in. If you haven't had a chance to work on it yet, don't worry, but just know that by the end of certification, I will need to have that in your environmental plan along with your goals. So if you have any questions on it, let me know. I did send out some examples, but if you need more examples, I'm happy to provide those as well. All right, so we do have a full agenda today, so I'm going to jump right in and get our presentation started off. So we have Jared Combs. He is joining us from CDE. And Jared, I am going to hopefully assign you presenting capabilities. So give me 1 second here. All right. Jared, did that work?
I think that it did. Just got to figure out which screen is which, and so you all can tell me when you see my slides.
I can see them.
Okay, good deal. I don't usually use this room for presentations, so I was a little worried about that, but I feel good now. So I am Jared Combs. I was previously with the Energy Services Department at CDE, and they handle all of our energy efficiency programs. And I'm going to give a presentation this morning that I have probably somewhat over dramatically entitled Energy Services, the intersection of sustainability and profitability. I probably watched too many TED Talks when I came up with this title slide, but it does tell you I'm very passionate about this part of what we do. It's working directly with customers to help them not only become more sustainable, but leaner and more profitable. And it's very rewarding work to do. So I'm going to go through a lot of the services that we offer, hopefully systematically in a way that's easy to remember. But the important thing to remember is really on the last slide. You don't have to take notes or know exactly which program is right for you. The right thing to do is always just to reach out to us and let us do the legwork for you, track down an appropriate program for whatever project you're working on. So we'll start with some simple examples of what we do to help businesses become more energy efficient and sustainable. Working just directly with our customers, we do a lot of energy auditing, and typically an energy audit, a phase one audit, like we would do for you, would consist of an initial meeting where we would look over the vast amounts of energy usage data that we collect on our businesses and buildings in Clarksville. And from this data, which is, if you're looking at the slide, that top right-hand segment of the image there is just a screen capture of a very small piece of an interval data file. So every 15 minutes, we collect information about how much power the building is using. And that is useless. That is just a giant CSV file full of numbers that you can't make any sense of. So what we try to do then is turn that data into actionable information for the customers. So from that, we can help you to determine, what parts of the day are you using the most power, which days of the week, if you have multiple meters, which buildings or processes are your most energy intensive ones. So we might schedule a meeting and just kind of look over this, just how does your building use energy? And at that first meeting, we would probably also talk quite a bit about what your goals are, your sustainability goals, and maybe if you have certain investment metrics you look for, a project needs to be able to pay for itself in a certain period of time, or have a certain net present value. We want to know those in advance. So energy audits always start there, just with a review of the available data and getting to know the customer. And then typically we'll move on from there to put together a report. So we'll visit a site, and we'll, on the right-hand side of the slide, is one page of a thermal imaging report. So we'll do some thermal imaging of areas of the building where we think there might be air infiltration or exfiltration. And it's a really good way of finding the areas for which weatherization or insulation projects would be the most effective. And then on the left-hand side there, that's just payback metrics. In this case, real simple thing that we calculated on lighting. So if you wanted to switch from, let's say, fluorescent lighting to LED lighting, then we could help you to figure out exactly how long that project would take to pay for itself. Those types of projects have excellent payback periods, often less than 1 year. So we usually do that one unless you've already switched to LED lighting, in which case we can do the same types of calculations for building processes like heating and cooling, or if you're a manufacturing company, then we could maybe start to get into some of your manufacturing processes, though you know vastly more about those than we do. And so that's where we like to, and where we really shine is where we partner with TVA and other professionals to do higher level, more intensive work with our customers. So we have a number of programs where we're partnered with TVA, and basically they allow us to combine TVA's expertise and their funding with our own, and then to produce customer solutions. That's pretty vague, so I'm going to go through some of those customer solutions on the next slides. So an umbrella that we and TVA use for these programs is Energy Right. Most of their programs that benefit both commercial and residential customers really fall under the Energy Right umbrella. And one way in which TVA works through Energy Right to benefit businesses is through direct incentives. So there are some things that are both considered sustainable improvements to business. They are considered investments that have good returns, and they are considered electrification. So they actually add electric load to the system because you're either adopting a new technology to use electricity that wasn't being used before, or you're switching from some, less carbon friendly fuel source to electricity. In the Tennessee Valley Authority, for those of you who don't know, electricity is a fairly friendly option for the environment because so much of TVA's base load is nuclear. And more of that load is now actually renewable as TVA starts to build out solar and wind facilities. So these are unique times, as is evident by the virtual call that we're on right now. But also, typically TVA has a number of incentives that they offer on different technologies. Low volume, high velocity fans are a big one. They're big fans. They're just giant fans. And some lighting incentives in the past, electric forklifts. There are a number of things, and you want to keep an eye on what they're doing because they constantly change those incentives. But at the moment, they're only offering one incentive, and it is for something that is directly meant to help fight the COVID pandemic. And so I'm going to watch this like 30-second long video explaining what UVC lighting is, and just know that they do have an incentive to help you pay for this technology right now. Did you know there's Okay, so hopefully that video played well for everyone. Were you able to hear it? Did that actually work? Okay, well, I hope it didn't.
We saw it. I saw it, but I couldn't hear it. Maybe it was my computer.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate.
Well, Jared, and I can send out a link to that video when I send out all the information.
We'll send the slides. And if you could see from the visuals in the video, basically what UVC lighting does is it installs a UV light in the return air ducts for your building's HVAC system. And so once air returns through that duct back to the system, it's passes through the UV light, and viruses are deactivated. So when the air goes back through the system, out through the air registers in your lobby or in your offices, there are no active viruses in that air. There's a whole lot of scientific study of these systems. They work, and so TVA has approved them for incentives. There are other options. There's like air ionization and direct UV lighting. TVA is not incentivizing those options, but they do state on their website that they support any technology that's proven to be effective in fighting the coronavirus. But this is the technology that they've chosen to directly incentivize. So another way that TVA works with us, CDE Lightband, and directly with our customers is through what they call the Comprehensive Services Program. So we've done some really cool things through this program. Essentially, this is wide open. It could be virtually anything you can think of that we would partner with you and TVA to provide energy engineering and also electrical engineering and maintenance services. So we fund this program every year, a certain amount of money that we commit to the comprehensive services program. TVA matches whatever dollar amount we put in, and then we use that money to keep on retainer professional engineers who work for TVA to do very advanced energy audits for our customers, or not so advanced. We're open to any conversation about anything you think would be beneficial to your business. Also, they'll do like power factor analysis. I'm not sure that anyone has ever noticed a power factor on their bill, but if you have and you wonder what that's about and how you would correct, that's a service that we can provide. They'll do demand analysis. So again, if any of you notice that you have a demand charge on your bill, a service we provide would be to figure out what drives your demand, what parts of the day does it happen, and would demand response be an option for your business. And then they'll do things like ultrasonic testing for air leaks. Typically in pressurized systems, there are quite a few air leaks, and those are very cost effective to fix, and they can calculate exactly how much money you would save by fixing all of them and locate them and tag them in your facility. Also, they'll do sub-metering, which is where you just meter like a specific process or a specific device in your facility so that you can see what percentage of your total electric load is caused by that specific device. And they'll do infrared scans. This is a really big one that I'd like to find more candidates. If you have insurance that requires that you do infrared scans of your electrical equipment, main buses and panels, things of that nature, once a year, then a lot of our businesses, I think, are going out and paying folks to do this type of work for the insurance companies. But we can actually fund that for you through the comprehensive services program. And a new way that TVA is trying to simplify all of the services that they offer is through something called My Energy Advisor. Essentially, this is a dashboard. So you could go to energyright.com and you could search for days. There's so much on there that it would be very entertaining, but it'd be very hard to find things that are specific to your operation. My Energy Advisor seeks to customize that information by building a dashboard for you. So we'll give you information about how to reach all of these websites at the end. But if you went here and you gave them some very basic high-level information about what type of business you're in, then you would get a customized dashboard that would kind of parse out the things that they think are most useful specifically to you. And as a part of this personalized dashboard, you could also manage your energy profile. So if any of you have Energy Star portfolios, which is basically where you upload data about your energy usage of your building, and you work toward different sustainability and certification goals through the Energy Star program, you can actually do all of that through this platform. So it's sort of a one-stop shop. You don't have to go to Energy Star on the one hand and then Energy Right on the other. You just do it all through this dashboard. You can sort of benchmark yourself against other businesses in your industry to see what has been successful for businesses of the same type and what's currently trending in energy efficiency or demand side management for those types of businesses. In general, this is a great place for all of the tips and trends, tools, also a huge repository of articles related to energy efficiency projects. And it's all sort of tailored very much specifically to you, the customer. So I highly suggest if you're going to go anywhere to check out one of TVA's websites, you start with My Energy Advisor. I think it really is beneficial. So it's a very new tool that they're offering. So we would also, of course, appreciate feedback if you have any. And so that's it for energy right programs. I would just say that's a, and I didn't even cover really 10% of what we do through energy right programs. If you take only one thing away from all of that, it would just be that if you have any energy project that you're working on, contact CDE. Don't be overwhelmed by all of the information that's out there. You just contact us. We'll track down the right program for you, and we'll work directly with you to help. We have an entire department of people dedicated to that, and they're very good at what they do. So we'll move on from energy right just to talk a little bit about renewables, because it's a huge topic now. And a lot has changed in the past year for CDE and for TVA and on the renewables front. So you basically have an option no matter what you want to do in the realm of renewable energy, but your options are sort of these four categories. So if you think that your business wants to invest in green power, but you don't want to own it, you mostly want to make the symbolic investment, and then you could go through what they call green switch. Green switch essentially allows you to pay a premium on your electric bill to purchase renewable blocks of energy, and they just recently lowered the price per block. We can provide you pricing information if you're interested. I don't actually have that included in the slide. But they're very competitive against other markets in the nation through the Green Switch program. If you did want to own your own solar generation, then they and we through TVA have a program for that as well. So this one's called Dispersed Power Production, or DPP. So you work with a contractor. We'll help you find a contractor if you're interested. They're coming up with a list that's been TVA approved. And once you have found your contractor, you go through the installation process. You're not going to have to do a whole lot in terms of communicating the engineering or the system layout. We'll work directly with your contractor to handle that. And then you will use as much of the power that system generates as you possibly can every hour of every day behind your meter. We'll never see it. So the value of that power obviously is just, it was whatever the power was going to be worth on the retail market that you didn't have to buy. Excess generation that you cannot use, TVA will purchase back to you from you at their avoided cost. So currently avoided cost is about 1.8 cents per kilowatt hour. So the objective in DPP for the business and for us to help the business with is to appropriately size the system to match the load of the building. You do have a little cushion. You can sell power back if you excess generate, but the rate per kilowatt hour is going to be much lower. And so you want to keep most of the power generated behind the meter, and we can help you. So if you have a business, and this typically applies to large businesses with aggressive sustainability goals, like Google and Facebook come to mind. They want a certain percentage or all of their energy use to be carbon neutral. So what they might do is just purchase RECs, renewable energy certificates, from TVA, and they would purchase enough RECs to cover all of their load. And a REC basically means that somewhere in the world, renewable power for that amount of load was being generated. The credits, the certificates for that renewable power can then be sold to another customer to show that their load is covered. And so you would do that through what TVA calls the Green Flex program. And then finally, there would be Green Invest. And actually, in fact, this is the way that a lot of the largest Facebook type and Amazon type businesses choose to cover their electric load, which is they partner with TVA and local power companies to actually install huge 100 megawatt arrays of solar panels to cover their load. And then they in turn own the RECs from those panels, but they also invest up front in the establishment of those huge production facilities. So again, that's a lot. And if you're interested in renewables, you don't have to remember any of that. You can just call us and we'll tell you all the options again, or if you tell us what you want, we can probably just make it happen. That's really our goal in everything that we do, is to make it as simple and comfortable for the customer as possible. You have businesses to run, and we help with this little part of it. So definitely reach out to us if you have any interest in those things as well. So I guess this is in summary. There are a lot of resources out there that are relevant to your sustainability goals and to your energy efficiency goals. So many that it can be pretty overwhelming. So our goal is to take your input as the customer, know your needs, and then go to those resources and distill all that vast amount of information down into just what's actionable for you. We feel like we're pretty good at that, and we really like opportunities to work with customers and show that side of what we do. So, please find us opportunities to work together. Or if you're just not sure where to even start, that is okay. Come to us at that point and just say, maybe just visit my facility. You tell me what you think would be effective for us. That's certainly an option. So typically, I just keep hitting this point because I want to make sure that I've been clear about it. You have an energy project, you contact us, and we'll go to work for you, and we'll figure out what's the best thing to do in your given situation. So I usually don't have as much time. I could just keep talking. No problem at all. But typically, this would be where I would just take questions. So if there are any, we can do that.
Great. If anybody has anything, feel free to unmute yourself or put a question in the chat. Jared, real quick, cost to businesses for these services.
Yeah, free. It's all free. There are rare circumstances for really huge projects that we will cost share through the CSP program, but I can't think of a single time we've ever even required cost sharing. I'm sure there have been some, but I wasn't directly involved in those projects. And typically we pay half, TVA pays half. You get the end product, and that's the end of it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, this is a great program, everybody. One of the questions was who do they contact at CDE if they're interested? Are you the best contact, or is there someone else?
So you would want to contact the Energy Services Department, and I'm going to actually type that in contact information in the chat right now. But I will, before I send these slides to you, Carly, if you're going to send them to everyone, I will add the contact information to the questions slide. It really should have been there anyway.
Perfect. That sounds great. I'll make sure to get that out to everybody. Jared, while you're typing that in, we had another question. If you could explain a little bit more about the differences between the Green Switch program and purchasing RECs.
Sure. So really, as I understand it, and if you're interested in RECs, we want to dig deeper and find out which program is best for you, because as I understand it, it's just a matter of scale. So Green Flex is essentially Green Switch, but for large purchases of renewable energy credits. As a matter of fact, I don't know all of the details off the top of my head, but I can email them if you're interested enough. I think there's a minimum on the Green Flex program, and that becomes the biggest difference.
Perfect. I don't see any other questions coming in. But I will say, so Jared works at CDE, and that's the local power provider for the Clarksville area. If you happen to be outside of the Clarksville CDE area and possibly have CEMC as your service provider, they have very similar, well, they actually have all the same TVA sponsored programs, and they also offer the same, they can do energy audits, they can do the same types of things that Jared had explained. It would just be a different contact. So if you happen to be outside CDE's area and you need the contact for CEMC, let me know. I'm happy to provide that as well, because there is a counterpart to Jared at CEMC that can do the same type of things. Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions. So thank you, Jared. I appreciate you coming on, and this was fantastic information. And I'll get this out to everybody. So thanks for taking the time this morning to talk with us.
I was really happy to do it, and I'll send you these slides.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. So let me come back and I will share my screen again here. Perfect. All right. So I'm gonna leave the chat bar open. If you have any questions as we go along, let me know, and we will continue on. Oh, my screen has decided it doesn't want to. Let me try that again. There we go. Maybe not. Apologize, everybody. I want to make sure I get this up so that everybody can see it. Jump in. There we go. All right, so we're going to move on. So that was our first conversation about utilities and possible utility waste. Our next segment is going to be from Bi-County Solid Waste, and unfortunately, Mary Anderson wasn't able to be with us today, so I'm going to do the Bi-County Solid Waste discussion. Again, if there's any questions that you have as I go along, please feel free to type them in the chat, and if I don't see them as I'm talking, I will catch them at the end, I promise. So... Perfect. So Bi-County Solid Waste handles all of the waste and recycling for Montgomery County and Stewart County. Bi-County was established back in 1974, and it was an interlocal agreement between the two counties, and it is governed by a board of directors. So we have the director of the landfill and the daily operations, and then we also have a board of directors that governs the landfill. So the director of the landfill does sit on the board, and they report to the board, and then the board includes representatives not only from Montgomery County but also from Stewart County, because again, it is for both. Move on. All right, I have a little bit of lag as I go between the two of them, so I apologize if you're not seeing the slides go as quickly as I am. There are different kinds of landfills. So you have a class 1 landfill, which is solid waste that comes from a residential or commercial organization. And then you also have a class 3 landfill. Class 3 landfills are anything that is designated as construction or demolition. So there is 3 landfills that Bi-County oversees. The first one is a class 1 landfill that is out on Dover Road. Also out at the Dover Road location, there is a class 3 landfill, and then there is a second class 3 landfill that is located out on Guthrie Highway, which is as you're leaving Clarksville and you're heading towards Kentucky, you will pass that. It's by the American Snuff plant out there. So there's 2 different ones. For the majority of the waste that a business produces, unless you're in construction, the majority of your waste will always go to the class 1 landfill. So one of the things that you hear a lot, and especially in our region, if you've heard anything about Bi-County probably in the last 5 years, you've heard the word airspace. So there is a difference between the amount of land that is available at the landfill and what's called airspace. Airspace is essentially how high you can build on that area of land. So Bi-County Landfill actually owns a significant portion of land. It owns right up to Fort Campbell. In this picture that you're seeing, everything within the, there's a road that goes along. They own within that. They actually own a little bit more to the top of the photo. They also own a section of property on the other side of Dover Road, which is at the bottom of this photo. So they own a significant amount of space, but that doesn't mean that they can actually put waste in all of those locations. In order for them to put waste into the landfill, they have to have it permitted by the state of Tennessee. So that's what airspace is, and airspace is permitted. So even though the landfill owns a lot of land, the airspace where they're actually allowed to put waste is smaller, and they can only permit sections of land at a time. So a couple of years ago, there was some questions about the landfill and the amount of space they had. That was the airspace. That was what was permitted. So they needed to get additional airspace permitted. If anybody's been out to the landfill recently, you'll know they've actually, there was one mountain, kind of if you're looking at the left-hand side of this photo, they're now working on a second and a bridge between the two. So that's the airspace that they're working in right now. But again, like I said, they do have additional land, but in order to use it each time they move to a new section, it does have to be permitted through the state, which does take some time. So daily operations. So each day they get in about 600 tons of class 1. Again, that's residential and commercial waste. And 2,000 cubic yards of class 3. Again, that is your construction waste. When the tornado went through back in 1999, the construction waste obviously went significantly higher. Bi-County also takes some of the construction waste anytime we have a natural disaster. So tornadoes in our area, floods, they're able to accept that waste as well into our class 3 landfills. One thing I want to spend a little bit of time on is the next 2 bullet points. So you'll see annual revenues for the landfill. The landfill actually operates where they don't create a revenue. So essentially everything that they get as revenue goes back into the operation of the landfill. And there's only certain ways that they get revenue in. So there is actually no taxes that you pay in Stewart or Montgomery County that go directly to the landfill. The only way the landfill is funded is through your user fees. So you'll get those in the mail, whether you pay it monthly or quarterly, but this is the $5 user fee that you pay that comes directly to your home. The other way they get revenue is through the tipping fees. So this is each time a truck comes across, a garbage truck comes across, they pay a tipping fee. Private companies that dump also pay a tipping fee. But something to think about is if you have a local garbage provider that you're paying a fee to have your garbage picked up, that garbage all goes in, but then that truck goes across the scales and pays a fee. So you do pay both your user fee and a tipping fee, but your user fee also provides you the access to use the convenience centers as well. Much smaller sources of revenue for Bi-County are recycling. The recycling market goes up and down. So, and we've had some changes as to the materials that Bi-County will take. The amount of profit, if any, that Bi-County gets back from recycling is generally very, very small. The last one is gas to energy. So gas to energy is methane as it's produced off of the trash that has actually been placed on the mountain. It produces methane gas off of it, and that's actually captured and sold. Again, these last 2 bullet points are a very small amount of the revenue that comes into Bi-County. The tipping fee and the user fee, much higher. That is actually the vast majority of the money that comes into Bi-County. There are about 100, and there's actually probably more. This is an older slide of current employees. These include all of the administration. for by county. There's also all of the convenience center workers, and then the amount of heavy equipment operators that it takes to constantly maintain the hill each day, and also provide daily cover onto the hills. So each time, at the end of the day, and throughout the day, after solid waste is placed, you need to have a cover that goes on top of that. So that's then placed by employees as well. So if you're ever out there and you look up, you'll see there's always things happening. There's always machinery out there working on the hill. So I mentioned methane comes off as one of the byproducts as the waste decomposes, and methane is a gas. The other thing that decomposing waste produces is leachate. So leachate is also contained. Now, when the landfill is built, there is actually a liner that goes all the way around the land to make sure that nothing penetrates down into the ground and into the groundwater. In this liner, there are collection systems that collect the liquid that comes off, and again, that's called leachate. This collects and is piped to the back of the landfill where we have the leachate lagoon system. And so as the leachate comes in, there's actually microorganisms that eat, they essentially eat the leachate and decompose that down into something that isn't toxic. So microorganisms, and there's some chemistry taking place, and I can't tell you exactly how it does it because I'm not a chemistry major, but yeah, the leachate that is actually taking place. The microorganisms are eating the leachate that comes off in the back of the landfill. Methane, we talked about. This actually, the picture on the left is the methane collection facility. If you remember back to that overview of the landfill, on the methane collection is located just to the right of the main hill that you'll see. It's actually a really small facility. It's probably no bigger than a couple sheds. It looks really large in this picture. It's really not. In comparison to the entire landfill, it's just a small section. It collects all of the methane, and again, that's used to turn into energy. A small amount, there is a cap on the amount of methane that it collects, but you'll see in this photo, you can actually see the burn off of the flare on it as it's collecting. So aside from solid waste, they also collect recycling, which is very important because, again, we don't have that infinite space to be able to use. So we need to have the diversion away from the main waste into recycling. There are 17 convenience centers and 1 transfer station. The transfer station is in Montgomery County by the library and the Veterans Plaza area. Every convenience center has recycling. So they'll have a section for your waste, but they also have all the bins around it for the different recycling. We do have a self-separating requirement in Montgomery and Stewart County. That means if you have recycling, you need to separate it on your end. You can't mix recycling together in our counties. It needs to be separated at home before you get to the convenience centers. It also needs to be clean, so make sure you take the time to clean out your recyclables. These are the items that you are able to put in at the convenience centers. You can put in cardboard, you can put in glass, plastics. Make sure when you're looking at your plastics, you check to make sure they're a number 1 or number 2. These generally are anything that is a bottle. So anything that has a neck and a screw-on cap is usually a number 1 and number 2. But check to make sure. We can't accept anything 3 through 7. These are much harder to recycle plastics. Usually we're talking film, anything that has a filmy plastic. Or a very hard plastic like a Tupperware. We can't accept those. Those are not plastics that are able to be recycled through our centers. There's also metals and oils. Metals, I believe, are at all of them. Oils, there are some convenience centers that don't have those, so just make sure you check. But if you have any questions, there is always an attendant at the convenience center who will be happy to answer your questions. I promise they have heard everything, so feel free to ask them if you have any questions or aren't sure about what can be recycled. You can also contact the main landfill by just calling the phone number. They'll be able to answer your questions, or feel free to send your questions my way. I am also happy to answer them too. And you can see there's a goal to exceed the standard of 25% recyclable materials by 2025. This fits in line with not only, this is obviously by county's goal, but this also fits in line with the recycling goal of the state of Tennessee. Another type of waste that is kept out of the main landfill is wood waste. And so if you ever go in and you come across the scales and you have pallets, they will actually direct you past the hill. They will send you to the farthest end of the landfill, actually down by the leachate ponds. And that is where they collect the wood waste to be chipped. Tires are also collected. These do not go into the main landfill, and part of the reason, one, yes, we're able to use tires for recycling purposes. Also, one of the things that they've found over the years in landfills is landfills are compacted. So every day they compact so that they can keep piling more in. Tires, no matter how hard you compact them, no matter how many times they go over them, they want to keep that circular shape. So compaction goes over within a certain amount of time, they'll pop back out. So they're very difficult to have in any landfill. And Middle Tennessee has lots of tires. So we are lucky, we do have a way that we can recycle these. So if you ever have tires you need to have recycled, please do not put them in the general waste stream. Make sure you take them to By County, make sure they get recycled correctly. So just want to spend a couple of minutes on recycling and what is recyclable. I talked a little bit about plastics earlier, but we also accept glass. So this can be anything that's colored or clear, doesn't make any difference as long as it's glass. And when you get to the convenience centers, there is a table that sits out in front of the glass. Just go ahead and set it on the table. The attendant will come and throw it in for you. Just set it on the table so that they have that there. And we just want to make sure no one gets hurt on the glass as it goes in. Could potentially fly back out. So just set it on the table when you get there. Aluminum cans. This is a picture of aluminum cans. Aluminum cans are one of the easiest items that there is to recycle. The whole recycling loop from start to finish, they can be at the convenience center, and within 30 days, they can actually be back on the shelf as post-consumer recycled. So definitely make sure aluminum cans get in there. They are definitely one of the easiest things that we have to recycle. Cardboard, any kind of cardboard that you have, save your Chewy boxes, save your Amazon boxes, make sure you get those to the convenience centers. Really important, even if you have curbside collection at your home, please still take your recyclables to the convenience centers. We don't have any local trash haulers right now that provide recycling pickup. So please make sure to separate these out. Don't put any cardboard into the general waste stream. It is a very valuable commodity for recycling. We want to make sure that gets back. Again, it's like aluminum cans. It's very simple to recycle. And we obviously, as a country, are using more and more cardboard through the pandemic with shipping. So make sure you're getting your cardboard recycled. The only types of cardboard that can't be recycled is anything with a wax coating. So the easiest way to determine if there's wax coating on it is to just take your fingernail and run it along the box. If it makes a indentation and you have wax actually on your fingernail, then you know it's been coated and it can't be recycled. The other thing that can't is pizza boxes. Once they have the oils from the pizza in it, they can't be recycled either. So unfortunately, those two do need to go in the general waste stream. And then plastics, like I mentioned, obviously number ones and number twos only. Other things you can recycle, e-waste. So this is any of your computers, your cell phones, appliances, anything that has a plug-in essentially that has metal in it. that can actually go to the landfill location on Dover Road. These are not accepted at the convenience centers, but again, you can just take it to the Dover Road location, go up to the scales, and just let them know at the main desk there that you have electronics. We actually have a company that comes and collects these. So if you have a computer and you're concerned about your data, this company actually comes, picks them up, and you can track, if you ever need to, you can track exactly where it goes. It's down in Lebanon, and they will shred everything. So e-waste, if you have enough, if your organization, say you're upgrading your computers, if you have a large quantity, let me know. We may be able to just come and pick them up directly from you. And then we have paint. This is the bottom one. So if you have paint, if you're painting your office, or even if you're painting your home, and you have any paint left over, don't put any paint that is still liquid into your general trash. This definitely is a biohazard, so don't put it directly in. Instead, save it. We have household hazardous waste days where you can drop that off at the transfer station. That happens twice a year, or you can always take it out to the landfill and they'll accept it there. If it's a very small amount of paint, the other thing you can do is take the lid off, wait for it to completely dry, and then once it is completely dry within the can, then it's safe to put in your general trash. If you're, if it's just that small amount at the bottom of the can. But if you have a large amount that isn't going to dry out, please make sure that goes to the household hazardous waste day or out to the landfill. Office paper and newsprint. So this is where the change has happened in the last probably 3 or 4 months at the convenience center. So prior to July 1st, white paper and newspaper could be placed in the bins at the convenience center. That has changed. They have pulled the bins back, but that can still be taken to the main landfill on Dover Road. So if you have any of these items, you can still bring them to the landfill. Again, you have to go to the scales and talk to the office. Let them know you have paper or newsprint, and they'll direct you to where to go. That is free unless you need shredding. So if you have documents that you would like to have shred, there is a per pound charge for anything that needs to be shred. Batteries, anything that has lithium in it needs to be separated out. Lithium is can be a fire risk, so make sure those get recycled correctly. I will say your standard AA, AAA, those cannot be recycled. In probably 10 years ago, they were recycling those. Since that time, the newer ones that have been manufactured do not have hazardous chemicals in it. And there is not a recycling option right now for those. So those can actually be thrown in the general waste stream. To get away from that, when you're buying batteries, look for the ones that are rechargeable, because rechargeable batteries can be recycled. So just something to consider when you're doing purchasing there. The last one is fluorescent tubes, fluorescent bulbs. It is free to recycle them as a resident. There is a charge for businesses to recycle bulbs. Generally, it's because the businesses have so many bulbs that they're bringing in. Just contact the landfill if you need to know what the charge would be. And again, those have to go out to the landfill on Dover Road because they're not accepted at the convenience centers. Anything with Freon, so air conditioners, refrigerators, those can all go to the Dover Road landfill. They will be recycled. There are actually technicians that work for Bi-County that are capable of taking the Freon out of those and then taking the metal to be scrapped for recycling. So definitely make sure that anything that has Freon in it gets recycled correctly. And again, scrap metal, if any kind of metal at all, metal is very recyclable. So make sure that ends up. These metal containers are at the convenience centers as well. So easy to recycle metal. So just a funny little cartoon here. Again, I will say, make sure if you're interested in recycling, there are ways to do it. These convenience centers that we have out there are fantastic ways to make sure that your recycling ends up in the right place. All right, so I'm going to move back into our presentation, moving past by county. If anybody has any questions, again, go ahead and place it in the chat. And I'll move on to our waste discussion. So today we've had a chance to learn a little bit more about waste as far as what happens at by county and waste kind of what happens at CDE on your energy. But there's some other kind of waste too. So we have the solid waste, utility waste, and then we have production waste as well. So I don't think we have a lot of big manufacturers on the call today, but this is anything, production waste can be anything from defects to overprocessing of materials in a manufacturing environment. And I will say even production waste goes into an office environment as well, of producing perhaps notebooks and binders that don't need to be printed out for customers. So there's some options for production waste at an office environment as well. All right, so how do you reduce your solid waste? So the very first thing in reducing your solid waste is to look at your purchasing. So in order to avoid having it go into the landfill, you really need to first think about, do you need to purchase that item? Is it something that can be reused? So can you use something that you already own for the same purpose? So that's kind of the first. The main thing you want to think about is, in order to reduce your solid waste, it really starts with purchasing. And that goes for even notebooks, that goes for anything you're going to buy. Think about if there's something you can reuse. And then when you actually are making the purchase, think about purchasing things knowing that you want to reuse it in the future. If you can't use reusable, make sure you look for things that have been remanufactured or things that have been recycled when you're purchasing. So a good example of this is paper towels for your restroom in your facility. White paper towels generally are not as environmentally friendly as the brown regular fiber towels. That's because they've been bleached. Also, the brown ones have the ability to have been recycled, so you can actually see on there if they're post-consumer recycling. You can actually read in it to see how much of that has been recycled. So take a second when you're purchasing and read the label or read the description and see if you can find out which has the most recycled material in it, so that you can make the best choice there. One thing I'll talk about is your vendors. So this includes Amazon, anybody, Office Snacks, anybody that is sending you supplies. You're the one making the purchase. You can ask them to combine your items into one box. Let them know that you prefer to have the least amount of shipping material as possible. And again, you're the consumer, so they will work with you. Amazon now has where you can actually select, you only want things delivered one day a week in as few boxes as possible. So, and other places, Office Max will work with you on that too. So make sure you check with whoever you're purchasing from and see if that's an option. And the pictures here on the right-hand side, I think we're all familiar with that. You order one spiral notebook and it comes in a gigantic box with 16 blow-up plastic containers in there to keep a notebook safe. So obviously it usually requires a phone call to have the note placed on your order, but it is something that you can do with your vendors. So a real life example of reducing waste comes from Sango Veterinary Hospital. So anybody that has gone to a veterinary clinic and walked in to register their dog, or even a human medical office, you immediately fill out the intake form, your name, your phone number, address, and then a description of what you're experiencing that day. So Sango Veterinary, every person that came in with their pet filled this form out. Well, that is a lot of paper. It's a lot of paper waste. Not only that, it's also the printing cartridges to print those sheets out every single day. And it's also the employee's time to then go through and transfer that information into the computer. Well, they looked at it and said, how can we reduce this down? And considering the form doesn't change, the form always stays exactly the same, they decided to print one form, have it laminated, and get fine tip Sharpies. And so when a new patient comes in, they receive a laminated white piece of paper that's the form. They use their fine tip Sharpie. They complete all the information. The employee then collects that back, scans that document into the computer, pulls it back out, uses just a wet washcloth, wipes it completely clean, and that's ready for the next patient that comes in. Now, obviously, with COVID, that's now changed to rather than just water to a sanitizing spray, but it still allows them to be able to use just one sheet of paper that's laminated multiple times. You got to figure lamination can hold up very well. So we're talking one could last 6 months rather than printing out each day. So they've seen a huge savings in the amount of paper they use, the time that it takes the employee, and then their printer cartridges as well. So that's an example on how you can reduce waste there. Another thing before you throw anything away. So this is kind of moving down to here's your purchasing side. Now we're moving to, okay, I've used something. Now what do? I want to see if I can reuse this before I put it into the general waste stream. So keep in mind, even things that you're planning on recycling, try to use them as much as you can. And white paper is a great example. Anytime you have any kind of white paper, whether it be junk mail or things that you've printed in the office, take a look and see if there's a back side that's completely white. Cut that up and use it as scratch paper. I keep a good stack just sitting on my desk, and I use it whenever I need to write notes. So make sure you're using your paper as much as possible, and then once it is all done, make sure that then gets recycled. Any kind of containers that you might have as you're getting ready to throw them out, consider, do I need this for storage? Is there something in my supply closet that I need something to hold, a Tupperware maybe that you were planning on tossing out? Could you instead use it as a pen holder? And then the final one, this is something that we unfortunately don't think enough about, but it's our food waste. So as we are finishing a meal, we have extra food waste, we have scraps, we have it in our house, we have it in the break room kitchen. Consider, one, if it's still food that is able to be used. So if it's an actual uneaten portion of food that you haven't touched and hasn't spoiled, that can be donated to local shelters. It can also be donated to farmers for animal feed. But then if it has already been touched or it's spoiled, composting is also an option. So that's something we are trying to grow in the Clarksville community, is composting. So if that is something you're interested in, please let me know. We're trying to get a pilot program together, and so we would love to have as many people be part of that as possible. So there's some options there on food waste. And I always get asked, why do I have a picture of a pig? And it is because of animal feed, but there's also kind of a funny story about this. So when thinking about reuse, anyone that's a manufacturer or uses a lot of a certain type of product is looking for a way to reuse it. And we have Beach Haven Vineyards, which is located in the industrial park, that had spent grapes. So this was something that they obviously have a large quantity of, and so they reached out. They found a local farmer that would be interested in the spent grapes. Unfortunately, didn't last very long because the farmer was ending up with drunk pigs. So sometimes that the recycling and reuse doesn't always work. And unfortunately, that was one of those. He had to say, no, I can't have drunk pigs anymore. So, but that's a little funny. All right, reducing your solid waste. So if you finally get to the point where you have this, you can't reuse it, what do you do? First, most important, recycle. So all of this on the left is a list of what can be recycled. There's even more items. So and I'll get into it in a slide further on. But check first before you throw out. Make sure it's not something that can be recycled. And you'll see on the right, it shows what the waste stream that is actually going into landfills throughout the U.S., what they're seeing the most of. And paper is the number one thing that they see. So definitely, like I said, paper is recyclable. It does require you to take it out to the landfill. But again, that is something that we can control to keep out of the landfill by just going that extra step and getting it out there. I'll also say if you have things that you need to be shredded, almost all, I'm not going to say all because I don't know on some of the smaller ones, but shred companies, after they shred your paper, they will recycle it. So just ask if you're setting up a shred contract, just verify, make sure you are actually recycling this correct. So that's one thing to check. But I'm going to say that the vast majority of shred companies right now, at least, and I checked with them around summertime, are recycling the paper that gets shredded. So if you have that, then that's fantastic. So this is just a quick look at the waste hierarchy on kind of what the preferred method for your waste is. So you can see at the very top is green, and that is prevention. So that's your purchasing side. That's you've prevented putting anything into the landfill just by the fact that you did not purchase it. Minimization, think of that as like downsizing. That's when you go through and you say, you know what, I don't need to purchase this anymore because I'm going to make a lifestyle change. Reuse, that's something that you already have. You're able to reuse an item or repurpose it, so it avoids going into the landfill. And you'll notice that then we get into the darker colors, and recycling actually falls into that darker color. And that's because, yes, you've already bought it, and yes, you're keeping it out of the landfill, but there are still some drawbacks with recycling. We know, especially with plastics, we can't accept all of them. And recycling of plastic has changed in where the end product ends up. We've had discussions over the last 2 years of, the United States had outsourced a lot of plastic to China. And now the question is, how do we bring that back, and how do we put that back into American manufacturing? So obviously, recycling is something that is great and that it keeps it out of the landfill, but we do want to definitely try to prevent and reuse before we get to that option. Next one is energy recovery. This is anything where you use solid waste to produce energy. So this is like the methane capture. This is a gasification process where you heat up solid waste to a certain point that it produces an energy that is able to be used to produce lighting. And then finally, you have disposal, which is the worst case scenario for your solid waste. That's where it actually needs to go to a landfill and be put into the landfill facility. Landfills, even after they close, still have to be monitored for 30 years, potentially longer after that. So definitely disposal is our very, very last option for what we want to do with our waste. Okay, so another real life example of a solid waste reduction. This one comes from Red Knight Distribution. Red Knight Distribution is a furniture warehouse that supplies to Ashley Home Furnishings and Furniture Connection in Clarksville. So they support both of those stores. In 2016, they purchased this little machine that you see on the right-hand side, and it is a styrofoam densifier. So anybody that's ever bought furniture knows it comes with a lot of styrofoam around it. So Red Knight is no different. Even large pieces of furniture like couches and tables have styrofoam that they need to dispose of. So prior to having the densifier, they were actually making multiple runs to Buy County just with styrofoam to be added to the landfill. It was about a box truck full every 3 days. So this small machine that they purchased has already, and it saved them $9,500 over 9 months. This is obviously older. It's they're well into, it's paid for itself multiple times over now. And they've saved that 1,200 or 12,000 cubic feet of styrofoam entering the landfill. That was just in that 9 months. So you times that per year, we're up into the 100,000 cubic feet of styrofoam that has been kept out of the landfill just by this little densifier. And you can see, so this gentleman feeds in the styrofoam, it heats it up, and then down at the very bottom comes out, and the styrofoam comes out then as a solid tube, and it's lightweight, but it's very dense. So that can then be sold to companies that are interested in purchasing that material. And they actually store it in a tractor trailer truck until they're ready to sell it. One of the companies that bought it recently, they make picture frames out of it because, again, lightweight but very dense. And so that was a company that purchased it. Once the trailer truck's full, they just search around to see who's interested in it and find the best price for it. And actually, the next slide is a video, and it'll tell you a little bit more about Red Knight.
Clarksville, Tennessee brings you a local warehouse that is helping pave the way towards a cleaner future. Here at the Red Knight Distribution Center, members of staff are not only tasked with the retail of furniture, but with the responsibility of recycling paper, cardboard, plastic, and styrofoam. The United States is the largest source of trash in the world. More than 1,300 tons of styrofoam is buried in landfills across the United States. Today, landfills are composed of 25 to 35% styrofoam. It is unknown how long polystyrene takes to decompose. However, the Environmental Protection Agency estimates it to be around 1 million years. Currently, the amount of waste saved at the Red Knight Distribution Center is estimated to be 300,000 square feet of landfill space, which is equivalent to a football field wide, a football field long, full of 18-wheeler trailers that are 8 feet high.
Get the styrofoam sorted, which is one of the biggest things we do on the line now. We used to just prep. Now it's like the recycling drives our line. So we have to sort all the materials in different boxes so that when it gets back there, it's efficient for one man to operate. So he's got a bunch of Gaylord boxes full of styrofoam, and he has to feed these pieces almost one at a time in the densifier to ensure that nothing's getting in there. No extra plastics, glues, no metals, nothing can go in. We make sure that he sorts it, he feeds it through. The densifier has an auger located on top, and it starts grinding the styrofoam up into tiny little pieces. Once it gets through the auger process, there's a grate which allows the styrofoam to fall through the grate into a heating core. That heating core is what melts the styrofoam into the final product, and it has a large screw which pushes it out of an extruder. So we built forms on the other side of the extruder so that when the densified styrofoam comes out, we can form it whatever shape we want. For us, it's best to form it to where it fits evenly on a pallet so we can ship. So we form the blocks ourselves, and once it comes out, it has a cool down process of about 20 to 30 minutes. If you touch it with your hands, it's really hot. It can burn you. So it has to go through a cool down process, but this is something that we do every single day. We don't go a day in our DC without using our densifier. For a family, you can look at your great-great-great-great-grandchildren and know that you're doing something today that's going to affect the way that they live in the future.
All right, so that's just a quick overview of some of the things Red Knight's doing on a real life example there. Just in interest of time, I'm going to go through these next slides really quick. So waste assessment. If you're interested, we do provide, the program provides a waste assessment. We can go through and look at what's coming out of your facility and what is capable of being recycled, and then how you would do that. So just based on what type of material it is, what stream it would be. Let me know. That can be in person, or we can do a virtual assessment as well. Again, if you're interested in starting recycling, the program, the Green Certification Program, will help you answer all these questions. We will evaluate how you can go about getting that started, how you get it to by county, whether if you have a large enough stream, a vendor might be a better way to go. We can look at all of that. We provide on-site or virtual training. If you're trying to get to zero waste, we can do that. But we can also go through and do education for employees about what is and is not recyclable and how we can make that work. So lots of options there. And if you're interested, just let me know. We will get that started for you. I talked earlier about things that were beyond what by county offers for recycling. We also, there's a program called the Green Cube. This is where you allow employees to bring items into your facility for recycling. These are usually very hard to recycle items, but these are items that can be recycled within Montgomery County. So we're talking printer cartridges, single-use plastic bags from Walmart or box stores, batteries, school supplies, blankets, things like that. So there are options for all of these. I will send out a list of what these items are and where you can recycle them in Montgomery County. Jared went over this a lot, but I just wanted to touch really quick again on utility waste. Your biggest energy wasters are your lighting and your heating and air. This is, if you're looking at your organization and you're just starting into sustainability, this is where you want to spend the bulk of your time, is anything with lighting and anything with your HVAC system, because they're going to have the biggest rate of return. They're also the biggest chances of where you are losing money and losing efficiency. If you've already done these, then the next thing you want to look at is your machinery and your appliances, and then you go from there. Finally, reducing your utility waste. Again, just some best practices here. Jared talked a lot about LEDs and how that is your best rate of return on investment. This is absolutely the most true thing you will see in reducing your energy use is changing to LEDs. So that definitely is probably the #1 thing that I recommend everybody do. And it doesn't have to be all of them all at once. It's as one burns out, replace it with an LED. There's some additional ones there on HVAC tune-ups. Make sure you're doing that in correct sizing. Weatherization, make sure you don't have air leaking out. Again, Jared provides those audits for free, so you can see, he'll use the thermal cam and you'll be able to see where that's happening. Water savings, that's something that we don't necessarily think a lot about, because it's a utility that we're not necessarily using a large amount of it unless you're in manufacturing. But water savings, can think about your landscaping and using low flow toilets and faucets. And if you ever see a leak, fix it immediately. One drip doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up so quickly on the amount of gallons that you're using. So some definite best practices on those. One thing at the bottom too, remember to let your employees and customers know, because they will help you with savings. So the key example on this is if you've been to a hotel and you see the signs that say, please keep your please hang your towels if you want to reuse them. This is an example of getting your customers to help you on your utility savings, help you with your environmental, keeping your environmental impact low. So make sure you let them know you're doing it. Production waste. Again, I don't think I have any manufacturers on this call, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. But if you are in a manufacturing environment, each manufacturing environment is different. Obviously, what goes down the production line changes. So if you're interested and you want to evaluate production waste, please let me know. But some examples of how to do that is to look at Toyota Lean Manufacturing and ISO 15001. Those are great opportunities to look at how to kind of over a general manufacturing, how to reduce waste. Real life example here, Sango Eye Care, after going through the program, evaluated their waste stream. They had a 6-yard dumpster that was being picked up weekly. After evaluating and starting their recycling program, they were able to cut their monthly trash service costs by 50% because they went from a 6-yard dumpster down to 2 90-gallon trash cans that they put out. So reducing your waste has a direct financial impact if you can reduce the size of your dumpster. Another waste reduction, Montgomery County Health Department, when they evaluated waste, they looked at all their different types of, they asked their employees to look at their daily practices. And they had an employee say, well, I was actually going to the post office 3 times a week to check the post office box. Well, they thought that was odd because they were getting mail delivered directly to the health department. So why did they have a post office box? Well, come to find out, they'd had the post office box for 30 years. And there was only 2 items that ever went to it. But they were from the state, and that was what the state required. Well, after doing a little research, obviously regulations had changed, and it no longer needed to go to a post office box. It could go to a physical address. So just by taking the time and looking at daily activities, they were able to reduce the employee's time of going to the post office, the wear and tear on that vehicle every 3 days, and then also the gas mileage and the post office boxed rentals. So it's not just looking at your waste of what's going out in your trash, but also think about your waste of time spent doing something. All right, everybody. So I apologize, we are over on time, so I'll go through this quick. Homework. I want you to think about everything you've learned today. I want you to think about your waste, how you can be more efficient. Do you have the opportunity to transition to electronic and reduce your dependence on paper? And then also think about how you engage your staff into this process as well. So, and as you're doing it, I want you to create a waste checklist. So think about all the different kinds, and then think about your daily routine of things that you go through. What are the waste? And again, think past just your waste basket, because obviously that's important, we want to know, but think past it. Think about, these are the items I do, this is what I do each day, and where there might be waste. And then remember to talk to everybody else in your organization, because again, they might see something that's totally different than what you're seeing, or something that you just, it happens, but you're not real sure how. They'll let you know where there's waste there. So that is all I have. Again, I'm sorry we've gone over on time, but I thank you for everybody that's stayed with us. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll continue to answer those. Otherwise, we will be back here next Tuesday. We will be going over our environmental plan in more depth, and we will talk about setting goals. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. And like I said, let me know if you have questions, and I will get all this information out to you later this week so that you have it. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week.